Hi guys, welcome back. This week I'm going to show you how to connect all the materials from your Clo file so that we can build a shader like this one that will let us create a nice set of textures for our model inside of Blender. First thing we're going to do is go into Clo and take a look at our Clo file and make sure that this is all set up correctly. So we're going to go first into the UV editor workspace. I'm going to click in the corner here and choose UV editor. And now we need to check how this is all going to work. Basically, we want to lay out on each of these tiles here. If I zoom in, we want to lay out on each one the different parts of the material. I'm going to link another video that explains this in a bit more detail, but basically you don't want any of the pieces overlapping each other, and you don't want any of the pieces extending across more than one of these tile boundaries. And in general, you want to keep the scaling of each material the same. So the zips are all the same scale as each other. The lining is all the same scale in the t-shirt, the jeans and everything. What we're going to do here is bake these textures and export them to work inside of Blender. And the way we do this when we're all set up, everything's nicely laid out on our UV tiles. We click this icon on the right side here called Bake Textures. It's a picture of a camera. If you click that picture, we can select our saving path, so where we want to save our textures to, and then we can select which textures that we want to bake. I've already done this, so I'm not going to do this again, and I'll show you what we export in the end. So when we perform the export, we should get a series of image textures in a folder like this. The diffuse textures, the displacement, the metallic, normal, roughness is everything that we're exporting. They are the boxes that we want to check here. We have no opacity for this texture, so we don't check that box. And then we want to click Save. I'm taking everything here at 4K resolution, so at 1496 pixels. I've left the multi-sampling at 4, and I've added 5 pixels to the texture, the fill on the seams, so that there's space beyond the edges of the pieces. With these settings, you should be okay, and then you click Save, and everything should export into its folder. You can check what those exports are going to look like with this icon in the top side here. So if you want to look at the base texture, the normal map, the displacement map, the opacity, metallic, roughness, whatever, all of those maps are visible here, and this is what we're going to export. The one special consideration we're going to make at this point is to export a height map for the top stitches, because if I zoom in, you can see here I have top stitching applied as textures. So all of these stitches are part of my texturing, and that is visible in the top stitching space here. So if in the object browser you choose the top stitching icon, you can see all the top stitching that is being used in your scene, and we can change these to be either object or texture. And I want everything to be visible as a texture. So if we check here, all of these are set to texture, so they should all be visible. The same thing on the sleeves, the stitching is visible here. And on the jeans, we've got top stitching visible with these bar tacks and everything. So we actually want to export a height map with this so that we can add some height definition into the stitches. And the way we will do that is to select all the top stitching that's in my scene. So I'm just going to shift and select everything here. With all of these different layers of top stitching selected, I'm going to go down to the right side and change the color of all of these to white. So if I choose here the color and I move this up to white, I select the most white value I can and choose done. These stitches should all be converted to a bright white color right now. And if I go to the fabric properties and choose my fabrics, I have these set of materials, and I'm just going to shift select all of these and again go down to color and change the color to completely black. So now I will have a base texture, a height map that I can use basically. The base will be black of everything, and then the stitches will be white, and they will be usable to offset the height. We can just check this logo here and turn the logo also to black. So I'm just going to look in my logos in the object browser, turn this to black as well. And that should be okay for now. So I'm just going to click here again. I'm only going to take the diffuse because I only want this diffuse color. I don't need all these other channels again. I'm going to select my folder. And just name this height map. So I'm going to export this here, click save, and then click save again. And those textures are just going to get exported as a height map. You can go back into obviously your history and undo these changes that we made to the base colors. And then we're ready to go back into Blender. So at the end of the last video that I made, we were at this point in our Blender scene. We've created the shape key here that allows us to open and close the jacket as we like. But if we look at this in render view now, we still have no materials attached and there's not really any lighting in the scene. We've got one light all the way up here, but we want some better lighting to work with to start to add these textures. To add this light, I'm just going to split the workspace in two. So I'm going to go back here into the shaded mode. Right click on this join area here. Right click and click vertical split and just split the screen in half. And on this side, I'm going to choose on here the editor type in the top section of this division that we've just made and turn this to shader editor. And in the shader editor now, I can either edit materials, or if I choose here the object setting and I turn this object setting in the top of the screen to world, I can now change how the color of my world works. And what I mean by that is if I go back here to render mode and click the render view on the top right side, the background of this world is completely gray. If I change this color here and I move this up, the world light is becoming white and it's changing color. But what we can do is then add obviously an HDRI light to this setup. And in order to do that, we need to work with an add-on called Node Wrangler. So we're going to go here to edit, choose preferences, look under the add-on section and search for Node, N-O-D-E. And I already have Node Wrangler activated, so just check this box and activate Node Wrangler. And that will enable a lot of shortcuts for us to be able to work with for the texturing workflow. So to start off with, choose the green shader here and press Control, Shift, and T. Press Control and T on your keyboard, and you will get a series of nodes that come out. So again, I'll show that one more time. Choose this green node and press Control and T on the keyboard, and these additional nodes will appear. If you're in render view, you'll see that the background immediately becomes bright pink, and that means that Blender can't find the texture file that we're working with. And that's accurate because our environment texture here has nothing input into it. We're going to download an environment texture from HDRI or Polyhaven. And here you can just choose a world light that you want to work with, just so that we can see this in a more natural type of lighting. The one thing to be aware of is not to take something like this with too much harsh shadows and harsh directional lighting. I'd take something a bit softer and diffused. So look at these spheres underneath the sky, and you'll see how the light is affecting shadows in the scene. So I take something with a bit of a softer shadow and a softer light just to work with while we're producing the textures. So here I'm just going to click open. When I've downloaded my HDRI, I will go to my HDRI folder, and I'm just going to choose lakes, for example, and click open. And then it's going to load into the side of the screen the 3D viewport. We're going to see here how the light is going to work now. So in the object browser on the right side up here, we actually have a light in the scene. I can turn this visibility on and off, but I don't really need this anymore because we have the HDRI. So I'm just going to choose here, delete, to delete that light. And now we're just about ready to start setting up the materials for this garment. What we can look at first is going back into object mode for the shader editor. So in the shader side of the screen that we've set up, go back to here where it says world, choose the world output option and turn that to object. And now we can edit the material for this object. You see here there's no nodes, and that means we've got no materials applied, which is accurate because, again, this is just set to white. There's no material applied to this. If we look here in the outliner on the top right side under jacket, we can drop these menus down and we see that we've got 13 material slots right here. And they are visible here on the right side as well. If I choose this little red icon, I can now see all the materials that are present in this one object here. And they should correlate quite nicely to the naming that we've done on our garments here. So if I look in my fabric overview inside Clo, I've named all these fabrics here, and those names have kind of transferred through here with a few changes to the numbering, but basically we can see what we're working with. In addition, we've got these slots called material. They don't have a name, and these are in fact our material slots for our trim. So if I zoom in a bit on this side of the screen and take a little look at our object here, I'm going to choose one of these called material, and I'm just going to go here to base color on the right side, choose the color, and set it to blue. And we can see here that that material slot is actually affecting this part of the zip puller. So if I choose this one here and I set this to green, for example, we see that that's affecting the zip, the slider. This one here we could change to red. That's the jeans button. And then I assume these remaining ones will affect the jacket buttons. So this last one we'll set to turquoise. And that's affecting the jacket buttons. We basically want these all to have the same property. We want them all to be metallic trim, metallic hardware. And we can combine these all into one slot by shuffling things around in this side of the screen. So we don't need all of these materials, we just need to work with one material to make these look metallic. To do that, we're going to shuffle all of these right to the bottom and then combine them together. So I'm going to take this one that's at the top and just press this down button here, and it's going to move it down in the list of materials. I'll take this one as well and move it down at the bottom so that all of our material, our slots named material with these colors applied are now above each other. And if I start from the bottom and I just click the minus button, it's going to shuffle these all together from bottom to top. And now they're all taking on the red color. So I know that these are all operating from the same material slot now. And if I go here, I change this red to like a gray, for example, like this. And then I turn my metallic all the way up, and I turn my roughness all the way down, or a bit of the way down. I've now got kind of a shiny metallic look on these buttons, and the trim as well. Maybe a bit rougher, maybe we make the color a little darker, but now we've got like one material just for the buttons. In theory, what we could do is combine all of these slots together and have just one slot that will work with the entire material. And I'll show you what that would look like. So I'm just going to choose this. I'm going to duplicate this by pressing Shift and D on the keyboard to make a copy of my object. I'm going to press Escape to just drop it back in the original position. And I'm going to hide the visibility of the first one. So the first one is here called Jacket 01. And I'm just going to turn this eye off and this camera off and just drop this menu back down. And we're just going to work with our new, our duplicated object at this point. So like I said, what we could do is, starting from the bottom, we could start to delete these materials basically. If we start at the top actually and press minus, these will all start to push down, 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 all into one material slot. And then if I stop there, I could rename, for example, if I double click this one, rename this t-shirt, call this fabrics. And then I change the color of this fabric, and now I know I'm affecting the entire object. So if I look here, I zoom out a little bit on my, I'm just rolling my mouse wheel to zoom out on the shader editor. I can set this up with the shader and not using this menu down in the bottom here. They're basically the same thing, like you see the setup the same, but we want to work with the node editor on the side of the screen here. And we've worked with, we're going to work with Node Wrangler because we've activated this already. So I'm going to choose this shader, and instead of pressing Control and T, I'm going to press Control, Shift and T at the same time. And that will open up a search window, and we can now navigate to the textures that we've exported. So if I look for textures, and I just highlight and select all of these textures that we exported from our Clo file, and just click Principal Texture Setup here, all these nodes will get connected, and then Blender will update the shader on the side, and immediately you will see some errors happen. And what's going on now is the jacket fabric is kind of okay, the zip is wrong, the the sleeves are fine, the pants are wrong, the rest of it's wrong. And what's going on here is, as we're working with UV tiles, if I look back here in our Clo file, we have all these different tiles set up. And what we want Blender to do is read from 0 to 5, and apply these to the respective areas of the model. And what's happening now is Blender is reading tile 1, and it's placing tile 1 everywhere. It's not reading tile 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's just reading the first one. So it's projecting tile 1 across everything. So you see we have the sleeve material on the pants. This isn't set up correctly, and this is really easy to fix. All we need to do is look at our image textures here, these orange boxes, and for each one, just click the folder button where the folder will open our search window. Choose the texture that we are working with. So this one is the base color. So this is the diffuse we're going to select. Select the first diffuse tile, 1001, from 1 to 5. We want these tiles to be red. Choose the first one and just click open image. And what that's done now is change this from single image here to UDIM tile. And you see now the colors that are being projected are correct. The base colors are correct, but the rest of the slots are still incorrect. So if we just go through, I go to the metallic one, click the folder, go to my metalness map, open image, here to my roughness map, choose roughness, select the roughness option, open image, down to normal, choose normal and open image, and then the same for displacement. Right at the end, we choose displacement. And that has now fixed our materials. The only thing we need to check now is our color spaces. So for base color, we want the color space set to sRGB. For metallic, we want to set this to non-color. For roughness, we want to set this also to non-color. And the biggest change you'll see here now is if we set the normal map to non-color. Right now, this is very dark and the jacket looks very black. But if we change this color space here back to non-color, the reflection should look a lot more accurate. So this is looking better now. And the same for displacement, we set this to non-color. And what that means is now all of these textures are applied to all of our garment pieces, but we can't control one garment separately than the other. We just have one control. If I disconnect this, I can only change the base color of all the pattern pieces together. So while this would work for a quick texture setup, I'll just reconnect this. We want to do this in a way that has more control over each different material inside of Blender. And the way we will do that is to basically copy these into our other material slots. So if we look here, if I turn off the visibility of this model that we've set up and look back at our other one, our initial import, we've kept all these material slots separately so that we could, in theory, set up different materials for different regions of the jacket or the outfit, meaning we have more control over how each of these different fabrics start to look. And very simply, like I said, we're going to copy and paste what we've just set up on that one model. We can copy and paste that across. I'll copy this here, highlight everything, press Control-C on the keyboard, and then go back to my other one, and I'll start with the jacket. So jacket fabric front. I'm going to paste this here and delete the nodes that were in the scene before, in the node space before, so we just have one set of nodes. And we see now this is being projected into our jacket. What we want to look at, we could take a look at this in cycles render, because if we go to our render options here on the right side, this is going to be set to EV by default. If I change this here to cycles, and I change CPU to GPU, I should have some more accurate material look of this material because of the lighting. I actually want to rotate the light in the scene because it's casting a shadow across here. So if I go back into World Editor, so again, in the shader editor on this side of the screen, I'm going to go to the top, drop this object menu down and choose World, and just look at the mapping node that's connected to our environment texture here. And if in the Z rotation value here set to 0, if I change this value, I'm just going to click and drag from left to right, I can move the direction that this light is facing in. So maybe something like this, or maybe we just choose a different light altogether. These look like. This one's quite flat light, let's say. Okay. So now we've set this, the base material of the jacket fabric, not the sleeves and everything else. We can look at how to use this bump map to add definition into the top stitching. Because for now, our stitching is not directly visible in this export. So if we look close, we can see the color of the stitch is being projected onto our garment, but it's not projecting the thickness of the stitch. So we can see how to use now the bump map that we created in order to push these stitches out a bit. So I'm going to go back again to the object editor. So if I choose my object and make sure I go from world here in the top side to object, I can adjust my jacket fabric shader here. And what I'm going to do is press Shift and A on the keyboard and search for an image texture node and drop the texture node here and just connect this vector to the same vector that everything else is working from up here. And here I'm going to click open and I'm just going to look for that export that I made. Was it back at materials? No. Okay, so these are the bump maps that I exported before. So I'm just going to select the first one here, the first tile, and click open image. And this is being read as a UDIM tile like the rest of this from before, so we know that this is working. And this color space is going to be set to non-color. Then I'm going to take this color output and I'm going to connect this to a bump node. And to create the bump node, I'm just going to press Shift and A and search again for BUMP bump. Connect the color output of this to the height input of the bump node. And then I'm going to take this normal map output and connect this to the normal map input of our shader up here. That will now add the bump. So if we look at the stitches, they should be a little bit like, they should look raised now. They should have some thickness. Where are we? Here. So you'll see here this kind of thickness and it's quite intense. So I'm just going to drop the strength of this down to say 0.25. And you'll see the effect of that on the edges of these stitches here. So they look more pronounced. We've lost the look of this normal map though, and the way to bring this back is to just take this normal output here and connect it to the normal input of our bump, and the normal map should appear back into our render like this. So that's how we can connect this bump map in order to project some of the height onto these stitches. I might put this back to 0.5. And now the stitches are looking a bit thicker. Now that this is all set up for one material, we can copy and paste this again across to all of our other material slots and then look at adjusting them independently. So to see all those material slots, I'm going to go to the right side here, choose this red material properties icon, and then I can click through these and paste the materials that we've created. So again, I'm going to select all these nodes, press Ctrl and C on the keyboard, and then go to the rib for the first one, delete these nodes here that are already there, and paste this, and now the ribs should load. For the sleeves, delete these as well, paste these nodes into the sleeve slot, and now the sleeve material is loaded. Yep, and we can see the top stitching is being made thicker down the front of the sleeve as well. Go to the lining, delete these nodes, paste this one here, and then the same for the rest of them. So now I've copied all of these nodes into all of these different material slots here, and we should have in each of them the same set of nodes. And what you'll see as well is Blender is now telling me that this texture is being used in 9 different places for 9 different materials. So it's only loading one image once and then it's being used in these different places. So that means we've set everything up correctly. And what this gives us the freedom to do now is adjust each material as we want, dependently from the other ones. So for example, if I go to the one called, did we call it fabrics? This was just a t-shirt, right? Unplug this. Yeah. this one was for the t-shirt, so I'll just rename this t-shirt, double click to rename it and call it t-shirt. Now I could change the color of my t-shirt here. I could add a print to it, I could add a design to it, I could add a different material to it. But this gives us a little bit of flexibility now in being able to change each different garment. The one thing I do want to look at is the sleeves. In the sleeve material, I'm going to look at this roughness connector here. So from this node to the shader, if I press Shift and A and I search for a ramp, R-A-M-P, color ramp, and I drop that ramp in this place here, it will drop it in between this connection. And if I push this black value a little bit higher, my fabric will become shinier for just the sleeves. So again, if I push this even further up, we see the fabric starts to get shinier and shinier as we go through. What's nice to be able to do with this, if I go back into shaded view, is we can make a lot of changes just to, again, to one material. So for the denim, if we look at the denim fabric, I have a front and a back material slot, so I can make the back of the denim that's rolling up here into a different color. So I'm going to look at denim back. I'm going to go here, press Shift and A and search for a hue saturation value and drop that in the base color, connect here. So now I'm affecting the base color of this denim fabric. And I'm going to change the value to to 1.5. If I change that value up, the denim starts to get lighter. So maybe set this to 2 and set the saturation to 0.25. We can make the back of the fabric look like a slightly different color, which is accurate to how denim fabrics work. Again, I think I might put this up to about 3 to make it really light in the back. 4. Yeah. So now the back of the denim looks like a different color because that's how I set the materials up here. And yeah, I think the one last thing we can look at on the main fabric of the body of the jacket is if I look at the jacket fabric, I again look at the roughness connector here and I press Shift and A and search for a ramp and drop the color ramp again in between here. I'll look at this in viewport shading in the material preview. So if you look at the material preview mode here, it's going to be a bit easier to work with than in render view. It's just going to look at the shaders. And now this jacket actually has a little design in it here that's rougher, and this is shiny and this is not. And we can push into this to pick out this detail a bit better. So using this ramp, I'm going to bring the black value down to make this part of the design darker. And I'm going to push this one up to make it come rougher. So you see now how that design kind of pops out from the fabric a bit better. Before it looks like this, there's not much definition around this secondary shape in the pattern. But if I push the black one down to make some of it shinier, and I bring the white one down to make some of it rougher, I get more definition. So I have this blue metallic shape, I have this kind of shiny shape underneath it, and then the base of my fabric is matte and black. Again, the sleeves are pretty shiny here. I could look again at the sleeves. If I move this down, I might bring a little bit of transparency into this. I'll just bring the alpha channel down a little bit so that the sleeve fabric is very slightly see-through, and then maybe push the normal strength to like 1.25 to really see this this ripstop fabric happening here. I'm going to look again in render view just by clicking this button here, and yeah, this is looking quite nice, this material right now. So yeah, I have these two shapes visible in my in the base fabric here. The sleeves I have a bit more control over, and I've created these to look a bit shinier and a bit more like a ripstop nylon. And then the trousers and the t-shirt I can control independently as well. So that's how we set up the materials inside Blender. I hope that was useful for you guys. I know it seems like a lot of steps, but I think the more you work with this process, the easier it is to achieve. And I think it's always better to keep these material slots separate so that you can start to combine different materials together and control them separately. If you're working with Substance Painter, you might have to make some different decisions, but this is the way to get your textures out of Clo3d and into Blender and have them looking quite nice and accurate, and how to set up the world light as well. In the next video, we're going to set up the environment, and then finally we're going to set up the avatar ready for the final renders. So I'll see you guys in the next part.